Lectures today centers on issues that surround directors' remuneration and the reason why we need the NED, non-executive directors, removal of directors, and other remuneration package that directors are entitled to with some conditions attached. And at the same time, I think the last aspect of the slide, I have shareholders activism, which we did last week. So that's the things that we are doing so that the time we cover today's lecture, by tomorrow, God willing, 1 to 3 o'clock, so we are going to have some aspect of governance. So we do that between now, next week, and after we are done with our lectures, so that we can be able to start revisions. I want to solve some past questions with you and give you that confidence, your mode of approach to questions and the rest. Okay, to start with, so we are starting for the need for non-executive directors, popularly abbreviated as NED, because abbreviation is allowed in exam. So the non-executive directors are not a full-time staff of the company, but they are appointed to perform some scrutinizing, supervising role and act as a whistleblower for the owners of the company that we regarded as the shareholders. So the non-executive directors, NED, are appointed to prevent minimal and general collusion fraud. By that we mean that part of their functions is to ensure transparency and disclosure to the shareholders. Any areas where they are smelling the aromas of any fraudulent practices, misappropriation of the company's fraud, be it a minor between two, three people, or the one that we call general collusion fraud, that a lot of board of directors are involved, they are expected to inform the shareholders. And that's the reason why we call them independent non-executive directors. So another function they perform is to achieve unbiased representation. Their reason for being there is to represent the shareholders and not to serve the interests of the board of directors or their own personal interests. So that's what I mean by unbiased net representation. Three is to prevent subordination and gain greater commitment. Without their own commitment, without their own transparency, it will be difficult for the company to achieve going concern. And the role and functions they are expected to perform, they will not be able to perform it excellently. So that's the reason why I said to prevent subordination. That subordination means that their own interests should not supersede the interests of the shareholders. Number four, to enhance diligent and objective performance of, they need to be objective, they need to be focused. Part of the remuneration committee, part of the nomination committee. So they have to perform the people's role and some other functions. So, and all these functions that they are performing, there is need for objectivity in all their basic functions that they are performing. At the same time, they must be there to boost the shareholders' confidence because with the non-executive directors on the board, the shareholders are rest assured that their interests are protected. They are rest assured that their investment is intact. So these are some of the basic functions that the non-executive directors are perform. So removal of directors. How can we remove directors of a company in accordance with law? Because anything that we have to do, the removal of the director, the appointment of the directors, uh, resignation or removal of director through retirement by rotation, it must be in accordance with the law. So the directors of the company can be removed if these following conditions occur, prevail. One, lack of compliance to laws. So the lack of compliance to laws, regulations, code of corporate governance, lack of compliance to the statutory provisions guiding their job, lack of compliance to the company at the country constitution, constitutional provisions. All these things can bring about removal of directors. Two, investing in ultra-vire businesses. No matter how profitable it is, any business that is not registered for, any business that is illegal, a director of a company is expected to distance his or herself from that, because it will cause a lot of problem for the company that is supervising, directing, and controlling, and it can cause reputational damage for the company. So ultra-vire business attracts litigations. So directors can equally be removed through non-re-election if the directors have one way or the other involved in certain uh, vices, or the director's expectations in terms of delivery of performance or target is not met. So the shareholders can remove such a director. You will not have the shareholders' vote of confidence for re-election. So directors can be removed through what we call retirement by rotation. That is number four. Removal through what we call retirement by rotation as a result of poor performance. So what do we call this retirement by rotation? I think I mentioned it last weekend. What we call retirement by rotation is that in retirement by rotation, it discusses on the tenures of the directors that they can use in the office. Through this retirement by rotation, directors can be appointed for 3 years, for instance, instead of 5 years. It will be stated in a letter of employment that you have been appointed the directors of this company and your tenure lasts in 3 years' time. So after these 3 years, the director will subject himself to retirement and allow the board, the shareholders, to review, evaluate his performance. If the directors perform excellently and meet the shareholders' expectations, that director can be reappointed. But if the directors perform below HEB, then such director does not stand the chance of being reappointed. So his tenure will end there. That's what we call retirement by rotation. And this retirement by rotation now, it has reduced the crisis of litigation, that the director will be sacked suddenly, that you have to go to court, this and that, whatever. No. And again, due to this retirement by rotation, since the directors knew that their performance will be evaluated after 3 years, it has increased the efficiency, commitment, and performance of the directors and reduce agency costs and conflict. So directors can equally be removed if the directors engage in activities that bring about corporate reputational damage, e.g. greenwashing, fallacious claims about corporate social responsibility, environmental sustainability, investment, and whereas the company did not do it. So all these things are part of the reasons why directors can be resigned. And you can even look at this, that the director's resignation or lack of succession plan, maybe willing the directors to resign or giving the option to resign, or lack of succession plan. It was just running the company as an institution. There is no succession plan. And any company that did not have succession plan, it will be extremely difficult for such a company to achieve going concern. So what are the roles of the board of directors? So that's the next thing we are looking at. So we quickly brush through that. The roles of the board of directors. The board of directors are expected to perform good leadership style and governance. In fact, we can even put it that they can expect to perform entrepreneurial leadership, because they have to be entrepreneur. They have to deliberately look for opportunity for the company, expand the company portfolio of investment, have a good leadership style, accommodating style, two-way communication style, and there should be effective governance. Another function of directors, the role of the chairman of the board, is that the another role of the chairman of the board is that provision of strategic pathway and implementation. There should be formulation of strategy, adoption of strategy, and all these strategies must align with the company vision and mission statement. And the strategies that we are talking about too must be formulated and adopted in line with the resources of the company. The strategy must be well implemented, evaluated, and controlled so that we can be able to get a for us to be able to achieve results. So the chairman is also expected to liaise there must be industrial harmony and peaceful coexistence among the directors. So what are the roles of CEO? You can't spell out all the role of the chairman. We have mentioned about 4 or 5. The role of the CEO of the companies are expected to
Sorry,
like,
sir. Your
yeah,
slide.
hello,
Your slide.
the slide. Okay, thank you. Let me reshare the slide. Thank you. It's because of the network. The network trip up now. Can we continue? I think you all have the slide now.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. So let's look at the role of the CEO because I want us to be snappy about it. The role of the CEO, one, to liaise and create enabling business atmosphere for goal achievement. Because he had to liaise with the chairman, he had to liaise with executive directors, he had to liaise with non-executive directors, he had to liaise with senior independent non-executive directors, including all support staff, because it's a collective responsibility. So the CEO is expected to work hand in hand with the board members. All the board members have to work with the CEO to achieve pre-stated goals of the company, both in the short and the long term. So the CEO must formulate strategic intent, objectives, and ensure proper implementation. All the strategic formulation of the company, the objective of the company, the policy of the company, the procedure, they have to ensure that all these procedures and policy are well implemented by the executive directors. So all delegated responsibility has to be accounted for, accountability. So the CEO of the company must ensure good management of the resources of the company. Both human and material resources of the company must be effectively managed. And this is part of the supervisory role. So the CEO of the company must oversee the monitoring of the prerogative provisions and implementations. And they have to see to the results and accountability. So all prerogative provisions must be well executed. So that should mean anything like misappropriation of fund or resources of the company. And this one will require strict ethical sanctions for violation or non-implementation of the purgatory provisions. So the functions of the CEOs are many and not limited to those ones that we have spelled out. So directors' remuneration, we are required in the syllabus to have a in-depth understanding of the director's remuneration because even in the time memorial, the past previous exam, we discovered that questions comes out on the areas of director's remuneration too. So these are forthcoming exam. We can't really say the aspects or the direction where the question is going on to come. So as a result of that, we have to ensure we cover all the required areas and the syllabus. So the director's remuneration, the determination of the director's remuneration is the functions of the non-executive directors and the remuneration committee. So the non-executive directors, they are pay annual fee for their services. And I've informed you, they are non-full-time staff of the company. So as a result of that, they don't receive the same incentives, bonus, share options, or fully paid share like the directors. But these non-executive directors, they are the ones that determine the remuneration package of the directors. that are full-time staff of the company. So the directors' remuneration, anytime it is being decided, particularly at the entering point when the directors is newly employed, most companies give the directors opportunity to be part of uh, they give them opportunity to be part of the committee. They will ask them of their previous payments, the amount they are investigating, and the package that the company have for them. So, but the general principle of corporate governance is that non-executive director cannot be considered properly independent if they receive any additional remuneration from the company other than a basic fee. What does that mean? What it means is that the non-executive directors have to be objective. The non-executive directors are not expected to have additional incentives to their remuneration like directors. Anytime they collect remuneration, cash bonus, performance-related benefit, target-related benefit, or share options, they cease to become non-executive directors. Please take note of that. And if the exam condition asks us, what are the reasons why the non-executive directors are not giving incentives, bonus, performance-related benefits, and the rest? We simply tell them because they are independent non-executive directors. That's why they don't collect incentives. Two is because for them to be neutral and perform their scrutinizing role. Three, because we want them to protect the interests of the shareholders and they experience minimal risks. So these are some of the reasons why the non-executive directors don't collect the same incentives. And to avoid fraud and superiority complex when they are collecting the same amount with the directors of the company. So let's proceed. What are the components of a remuneration package of directors? The remuneration package for an executive director is part of the director's contract of service. Yes, all directors are entitled to remuneration, basic salary, and some other add-ons, other agreed bonus and the rest. So collection of remuneration is part of the contract of service of directors. And these remunerations must commensurate with the effort, input of the directors. And it must be in line with what other companies are paying or being in line with market rates. So remuneration is reviewed regularly. Yes, in most companies. So they don't joke with the directors because they are the pillar of support of the company. So as a result of that, their remuneration is subjected to yearly review. In fact, some of their incentives too are subjected to yearly review, and this will be negotiated between the directors and the nomination and remuneration committee. So what are the components of remuneration package? The major components of a remuneration package of directors are the following. We have one, the basic salary, that's the one component of the director's remuneration package. Two, annual cash bonus. This annual cash bonus is always linked to specific performance or achievement of some target. Three, free shares in the company or share options. We are still going to discuss this one as our lecture proceeds today. So another benefit they have attached to their remuneration is pension. They have opportunity to be part of the pension committee, and they have opportunity for them to uh, receive pension for their services to the company. So the components of the director's remuneration now that we have mentioned, so I use that opportunity to develop them lightly. So the basic salary is one of the components that we have mentioned, and the basic salary is mostly agreed at the entry year or point when the directors join the company newly, and is subjected to review. It is subjected to review based on performance and target results. I've informed you that. I've told you that this basic salary that you are seeing is part of the contract of service of the directors. So we have two performance related benefits. These are benefits gained by the directors for their immense achievement of goals and remarkable performance. It is part of the condition of service. If you meet this target, if you surpass this, if you can move the company to next level, if you make a significant positive impact on profitability and non-profitability in this company, these are some of the benefits you will receive for that your remarkable performance. And this performance related benefit can come in form of yearly bonus. Okay, let's continue. So I said that the director, so we are in this paragraph in page 2, that a director will often receive additional benefits such as free medical insurance, a company car, use of a company aeroplane or helicopter, and so on. So what I'm saying is this, there are other additional benefits and loss rate of bonus that a performing director is entitled to. So it's not limited to ordinary incentives, changing of official cars, and many more. So what are the purpose of remuneration package? The purpose of remuneration package is to attract and retain a performing director. So when the remuneration package is attractive, it will cause a pool of individuals, directors that have the traits, the experience, that commitment to lead the company to the next level. But if the remuneration package is poor, this one will not attract a performing directors. So the remuneration package is designed in a way to attract individuals to a company and persuade them to work for the company. Apart from that, the remuneration package that we are paying, we are doing is to retain directors and to make them to be more committed with their work. So the directors are given all these lost crew of incentives, cash bonus, performance related or target related benefits, and many more, for them to put the interest of the shareholders, the owner of the company, first, to refrain from any forms of fraudulent practices, any form of fraudulent practices, and the rest. So that's the reason why we are giving them. So, but we have to note here that the amount that a company must offer its director depends on what other companies are paying. Because company benchmark too. How much is Zenith Bank paying their CEO or director? How much is Union Bank paying their director? How much is UBA or Access Bank paying their director? So we can use this one as a yardstick for us to determine how much we pay to. And another factor we consider is how many suitable candidates are available. So availability of many directors with require requisite experience and skills determine the amount that the company will offer the directors to. And we have to ensure that the level of remuneration we are paying should be high. It should be attractive. In case they ask us this as a direct question, and particularly when we have a case study question. In a case study question, it is possible they will tell you that the remuneration package of the company is poor, and this leads to high turnover rate of most of their directors, and as a result the company is experiencing declining or retrogressing performance. So you have to take note of that. These are part of the areas where we are going to advise the company to at least improve and make their remuneration package for the directors to be attractive. But if the directors too are not collecting attractive remunerations, it can tempt them it can lead to temptation for them to commit fraud because it will demoralize them. There'll be lack of motivation and the required skills needed will not be displayed. So we can see that the executive remuneration should be aligned to a company purpose and value. For a company that have a vision, for a company that want to be great, the salary you are paying should be appreciable, should be appealing, should be attractive to your purpose and value so that you can be able to achieve the long-term sustainability goal of the company. Because no director will give you their best if the salary is poor. So before we proceed there, you can see that one purpose of the remuneration package is to provide incentives for the directors. Because these incentives, they are reward that we are giving to the directors. And the essence of it is to motivate them. That's what I need to stress there. It will serve as a means of motivation, that they are motivated to achieve performance targets. So we have said so many things about the director's remuneration, and at the same time, we have discussed about this remuneration package structure. We have discussed about it, but we can still repeat it because there are some quick points here under the shares that I want us to know. Remuneration package structure. So, the components of the remuneration package structure I've told you: basic salary, cash bonus, performance-related incentives, share options, pension. So by now, you should know those 5 things. Okay. The remuneration package structure now, the salary, which we have mentioned, we have emphasized and re-emphasized and talked about this, that the salary, the basic salary of the director are being given for us to guarantee a minimum amount of pay, that at least they know monthly they are collecting certain amount of money. That's what that basic salary means. So in our basic salary, we have to know that the size of the basic salary vary between companies. Yes, the salary structure of company differs, and it depends to some extent on the salary paid to similar directors, comparable companies. So what we are saying is that the different companies pay different salary. In fact, depending on the financial strength, the size of the company, the scope of operation, the number of investments they have, some companies, upcoming companies, particularly the emerging companies, they cannot avoid exorbitant amount of money for their directors, but they try minimally at their level to make them to be happy so that they can be more committed and give them their best. So we have to know that salary structure differs in different companies. So another structure is short-term incentives. These short-term incentives are given to directors in form of a cash bonus. They are in form of cash bonus because you can see it here. I pencil it for you. Key things that you need. I put it in pencil, green pencil. The short-term incentives bonus, they are annual cash bonus for meeting or exceeding performance level. So that is what you need to know there. And this bonus scheme may be on a sliding scale with a bonus for meeting target. So the bonus varies. It can increase, it can decrease depending on the performance and delivery of the directors. So the reason why we are doing this is just to create a drive. Let me stress that for you. It is widely believed, it is widely believed that the nature and potential size of annual bonuses can drive. That is where what I need. If the annual bonus is high, if the company deliver their promises to the directors, now once we meet this target, once we meet this performance, we exceed this performance, these are the annual bonuses. Some company, the annual bonus can be up to 25%, 15%. It depends. So this one will drive reinforcement of more commitment. It will drive the directors to be more proactive in achieving more positive results and create what we call positive social footprint for the company. So another incentive salary structure is long-term incentives, share plans. This is very, very important here. The share plans. So in the share plans, the company will promise the director that if you stay with us for the next 3 years, I will continue with this performance, then you have the options of having probably 200 shares in 2029, for example. And they will tell you the rate at which the shares will be offered. So all directors have opportunity for share options or fully paid share. The reason why we give the share option is to retain the directors and make them to be more commitment to improve on their performance. So these share options, let's now look at it. And the important thing I want you to know about the share options is that there's always a crisis about these share options. And the crisis is that the share options given to the directors can fall as at the time when the director wants to access the share options. You can see a share option give its holder the right at a future date. That future date is what I mentioned to you. It can be a year, 2 years, or 3 years. So it gives you a right to access the share at a future date. That right means to buy the shares in the company at a fixed price. So let's go over it again. A share option gives its holder the right at a future date to buy shares in the company at a fixed price. So for example, a director might be giving 20,000 share options. So giving him the right to buy 20,000 new shares in the company at a fixed exercise price. That is 1,000 naira, at rate of 1,000 naira each. So that might be in the next 3 years. So anytime director is giving this, it creates a lot of enthusiasm and increase the perceived organizational trust. But it's a very good reward package for directors. And this one will make the directors to go extra mile to increase the earnings and revenues of the company. So in the share options, that share options will be decided by a consultative committee, because we have it here that a company will appoint a committee to decide how many share options should be granted to each individual directors. So like I mentioned to you earlier, in another paragraph, in the United Kingdom, the earliest time that share option can be exercised is 3 years. That means in UK, before the director can access the share, you will stay with us for another 3 years, after which they have been awarded. But I told you in Nigeria, as mostly practiced in some companies, in Nigeria, the directors are given opportunity to access the share in one after a year. After a year, that is more practicable in Nigeria, but in UK is 3 years option. So we have to know the meaning of underwater. It comes out in exam. They ask the student what's the meaning of underwater, or they can just put this underwater as part of your case study, part of the compression, that the share given to the director, and at the time the director wants to access the share, maybe to start using it or sell it, the value of the share fall, and the company failed to do anything about this. They only promise the director, which happened to be a lip service. So this one can make the director to leave the company, or it can lower the commitment level of the directors. So what do we call underwater share options? Underwater share option is also called out of money share options. Underwater share occur when the value of the share that was previously given to the director fall at the point of access, meaning that the 20,000 or $200,000 the meaning that the 20,000 share options we give it to directors at the rate of 1,000 naira each. That was our example. You can see it here. The 20,000 share options given to the directors at the rate of 1,000 naira each. By the time the director want to access this share, let's say a year after or 2 years after, the value of the share drop to around 700 naira or 500 naira. Short situation is what we call underwater. So once the value of the share we give to the directors fall, for it not to demoralize the directors, for the directors not to have that feelings of betrayal of confidence. So the options available to the company anytime there is an underwater is that the company can re-award another shares at a new rate to the director. So meaning that we cancel the existing share options and award new share options to the executive director at a new rate. Another option that we have is award of a fully paid shares. We can buy a new share from the Nigerian stock market and give it out to the director to compensate that director for the underwater fall in the value of the share. Or the company can instruct some of their existing shareholders to sell some of their shares to the company in a tender or auction process. Once they buy this, then they give it to the directors. So the benefit of the fully paid share is that if the value of the share fall in the market, you still retain its price value. So this one will go a long way to motivate the directors. So and we have another thing that we can discuss about, that is share plans and performance targets. That share plans and performance target means that any performance benefit related that we are giving to the directors or any shares that we are giving them, any incentive that we are giving them must be attached to their performance. If the performance of the director is poor or below expectation this year, all these incentives should not be given or should be reduced. So that's what they are talking about, the share plans. That it should be based on the condition that the performance of the directors should be the prerequisite for determining what their share plans and incentives should be. And at the same time, they must have opportunity for pension. So they must have opportunity for pensions. Okay, performance related incentive scheme. So what we have in performance related incentive scheme is not different from what we have been discussing, still the same thing, except some areas where uh, some of the shareholders or the investors they they are skeptical about some questions. So those questions we are going to look at it. So in a performance related incentives, we all knew that the major objective here is that executive directors must be rewarded for achieving or exceeding agreed targets. And we have to know that if the performance targets are properly selected, incentive scheme should be linked with reward for the executive. But the problem that we are having now is that it is always difficult for us to link the incentives and reward and the share options that we are giving to the directors in line with their performance due to diverse opinions, due to crisis, agency crisis, and many more. Because the reason is this: the reason why we are having problem with linking reward to performance is that some investors feel that anytime the company is doing very well, the directors are being rewarded. Anytime the company is not doing very well, The directors too, they still collect their basic salary, cash bonus, incentives, pension schemes and many more. Look at, for example, that underwater scenario now. The value of the share we give them fall. That shows that that year the performance in the market and that of the company is not okay. But yes, we still have to give them another share to replace the one that fall. So we now have that there are several reasons why there might be problem with linking reward to performance. So some of the disagreements about it that I told you are this. The question that are raised is that should the executive have a performance target for company performance? Should the director be rewarded for achieving personal targets they set for themselves? Should there be financial targets only, or should there be non-financial targets? So these are some of the questions, conflicting questions, many questions begging for answers that make it extremely difficult at times to align the performance of the company with incentives. So another thing again that bring about this is the issue of crisis about the maximization of long-term goals and short-term goals. So in the performance related, let me give you this clue here. Look at the clue. Executive may be rewarded with a large bonus for meeting annual profit targets. Fine. It almost certainly motivate the director to achieve the target. Yes, I agree with that. However, a consequence of maximizing the current year profit might be that long-term profit will be lower. What is the meaning of that? It's a bit technical. What we are saying there is that in rewarding them, we have to ensure that all the directors align with the company vision and mission statement for long-term sustainability growth. Because most directors, if they are not checkmate, majority of them will be having curiosity for yearly improvement in profitability. So that one will boost their bonus and incentives. So there should not be curiosity for short time or yearly gains by all the directors. The directors should put in place a strategic measure for the company to achieve long-term sustainability goals and profitability. So another thing that can bring about difficulties in aligning reward with the performance of the company is this. I've mentioned this. The executive may have expectation that they will receive rewards even when the company does not perform very well. This notion have to change. It have to change. So as a result of that, so the directors will be more performing, they'll be more result oriented, they'll be more visionary, they'll be able to manage the wealth of the company very well and all the investments of the company. So we can give the directors short-term incentives can be given in line with the UK Code of Corporate Governance. And at the same time, apart from short-term incentives, the directors can be given the long-term incentives. So these long-term incentives are in form of the share options that they will access in the next 3 years. So performance target. What are the criteria for the performance target? Ah, performance target. The performance target, under the performance target, we have mentioned the annual bonuses given to them and the rest. So the performance targets are these. One, profit after taxation. They can earmark that, okay, if the company make 200 million as profit after tax, so the director will have so reward or benefit. So profit after tax can be used as a performance target. Profit before interest and taxation, that is PBIT, can be used as a performance target. And at the same time, we use EBITDA. The EBITDA means any before interest. Any before interest. taxation, depreciation, and amortization. So companies have so many criteria they spell out as a performance target that once the director meets this performance or they surpass it, then they'll be entitled to so annual cash bonus, incentives, and many more. And apart from that, when we go underneath, I scroll down, you can see that green ink, that another thing that we call as performance target is customer satisfaction, customers retention, increasing the customers base. So different companies have so many performance targets that is set for all their directors. So our long-time incentives that we mentioned, that I told you the other time, I've simplified it here again. The long-term incentives of the company, you can see long-term incentive scheme for executive may set a target for profitability, possibly over a period of 3 years. It is always the best. You must not just be curious about short-time gains or incentives. Let's have a long-term plans for these directors, for them to build a succession plan. And that's the only way we can guarantee sustainable growth for the company, improve our competitiveness and innovation when we have a short time and long time plan. So alternatively, they may set a non-financial target for the company. Non-financial target, achievement of strategic goals. So it's not only financial targets, non-financial targets too, certain achievement of certain strategy or goals. Once we have all this, then the directors must stay with us for the next 3 or 5 years. That's another performance target as a retention strategy. So when we have all these things, then that director will be able to stay for a long time and achieve all his goals, all his promises for the company. So in the syllabus too, we are required to know the meaning of narrative report, and interim management system. They are not difficult. Narrative report, and interim management system. So what do we call a narrative report? So a narrative report is a report that the directors or the board of directors generally are expected to write and give to the investors of the company. So a narrative report should provide information in a narrative form about the financial performance and prospects for future. So you will provide a narrative report about the financial performance of the company, their future plans, future projects, and many more. And this one will help the directors, the shareholders too, for them to have a summary, a history of all the performance of the company within the stipulated period. Because at times we will discover that the essence of narrative report is that the view is based on belief that narrative report can be much easier to understand than the entire financial statement of the company. So, and you can see there is also a demand for non-financial information in the narrative report. It shouldn't be just financial figures. Non-financial information about the company's performance will be stated, even in the areas of CSR, goodwill, and many more. So we have to see a narrative report about this. So this one help the company a lot for them to know what is happening in the company for a short period of time. And this narrative report, they are voluntary things that the chairman of the company report. So what is interim? IMS. Just know from today. Sorry about that. It's the network. We are in Nigeria. We are sorry. So the interim management system require the preparation of the first 6 months of the financial year performance of the company for assessment by the company's shareholders. So under the interim management system, that means that we don't have to wait till the year ended that we are going to do the AGM and full financial report. So every 6 months we do interim management system, and this one will help in the area of transparency, disclosure, and to even give us opportunity to carry the shareholders along. There won't be anything like information asymmetry or agency crisis, since we are giving them 6 months report. So the positive and the challenges that we are facing negatively too, all these things will be reported in our interim management system. Anytime we are doing interim management system, we implore the directors to at least be transparent. They must not hide anything. So the description of the major risks they are facing, the uncertainties that the company is facing from January to June. So we have to look at it. The government policy too and minimum. So the last thing that we have here uh, are not much. So let's quickly look at the remaining aspect of the slide. So last week, I think we discussed on shareholders activism, and I told you that the shareholders activism means the reactions of the aggrieved group of shareholders to the poor management of the investments of the company. Their reactions to the poor performance of the appointed directors. That's what we call shareholders activism. In the shareholders activism, it is exercised in so many ways. In fact, I inform you that some shareholders will be so engrossed and annoyed to the extent that they will sell their shares and cease to be a member of the owners of the company. And we are advising that this is not good for the company in time of going concern. Because if everybody sell their shares, then how will the company live? So in the shareholders activism, the directors are advised to use their voting rights, to use their voting rights to remove and reappoint another directors. So other alternative approach to selling shares to shareholders activism is to monitor the company's directors closely. It's an investment. You have to monitor the company directly. You have to build good relationship with the non-executive directors to give you insider information about the activities of the directors. So two, instead of selling our shares, we can enter into dialogue with the company when it is underperforming. Maybe we call extraordinary general meeting EGM to address this issue. That this company cannot continue like this. If not, it should be liquidated. So what can we do? Persuade and plead to the directors too. So, and again, we can express concern to the shareholders about the company. Or lastly, we use our voting rights to put pressure on the company's management. So without voting right, we can vote to remove them. So what are the purpose of the shareholders activism? I've told you last week. The purpose is to improve the performance of the company. The purpose is to achieve long-term sustainability goal and create value to the company. So we have discussed about shareholders activism last week, last weekend. So another thing that we have here is the differences between the AGM and EGM. We know that AGM is a statutory provisions that are event that occur yearly. So the company board of directors hold a general meeting, annual general meeting with the shareholders. They will tell them the activities of the company from January to December. During this AGM too, they can propose the new dividends, introduction of new directors, appointment or removal of directors. These are some of the vital things that are discussed during the AGM. But we now have EGM. EGM means extraordinary general meeting. And the essence of this EGM is that there are some fundamental and vital uh, events that occur that the company will not have the opportunity to wait till December that they are going to do their AGM. So when this kind of situation occur, so what the companies do is that they quickly call emergency meeting. So that emergency meeting is where they are going to discuss on the emergent situations facing the company now and what they can do to overcome those threats or challenges. So the voting rights of the shareholders can be exercised in so many ways. So the voting rights can be used to reappoint a company's directors or auditors for another year. The voting rights of the shareholders can be used to approve a dividend proposed by the directors. 3. The voting right, not even limited to UK, can be used to approve the directors' remuneration report. 4. The voting rights can be used for approval of new share incentive schemes for the directors. And at the same time, the voting right can be used to approve proposed major transactions, provided that transactions are beneficial and it has a financial positive gains. So shareholders activism and voting right, still what I've told you, that in the shareholders activism, the shareholders are not expected. We are pleading to them. Don't let us sell our shares. Let's use this our voting rights to correct the anomalies in the company for betterness of the company. So anytime there is a shareholders activism, so the shareholders are expected to use their voting rights against re-election of directors whose conduct or opinion they dislike. Those perform are directors that put their own interest first. Those directors that are perpetrating personal or hidden gains. Those underperforming directors during activism, let's throw them out. So at the same time, we can use that voting right to go against the director's remuneration report if we felt that it's not transparent or sure directors too have not been performing. So what are the problems with the voting right? The major problem we have with the voting right is that the minority shareholders might not be able to exercise their voting right to implement new changes in the company because of the small proportion of their shares. You get it? When they have a small proportion of their shares, they don't have that say, a domineering decision as compared to the major shareholders. So again, is that another problem that we have is that uh, some companies, some shareholders, they have sold their shares to an institutions. It is that institutions that manage their shares for the agreed period of time. Due to that, anytime they are voting, church directors, church owners that have sold their shares or mortgage their shares, lend their shares to institutional company, they cannot have a say. They cannot dictate to that company that they have mortgaged their shares or lend their shares to. So this one affects them because the management of their shares will now belong to the company that have newly bought the shares. So that is what I mean by institutional shareholders might engage in stock lending. So the stock lending involves lending shares to another entity for another period of time. So any activities going there, any voting going there, it is that company that you have lent your shares to that will be doing that. So another thing that we have in the voting right is that many shareholders, including some institutional shareholders, may arrange for the company chairman to vote on their behalf at the general meeting. Some of them, instead of them to be there physically to look at the activities, they be complaining, I have to travel, I have some other important meeting to do. The chairman, I say, I'm with you, you can vote on my behalf. And using the proceed to vote, your interest might not be 100% prevented. The chairman is part of the member of the board of directors. So we not like to vote against other directors too. He will like to protect his own image and committee that he belongs to. So it's made the directors to be very powerful when you give it a voting right, and we vote in the interest of other board of directors. So these are some of the challenges that we have with the voting exercise in the company. So we have the stewardship code. So the essence of the stewardship code is for fund managers, that is asset managers, who make investments on behalf of their clients and who are therefore the legal owners of the shares. So the stewardship code is very close to that lending of shares. And anytime we lend our shares, we have make our investment to be managed by certain company or clients. So all the legal provisions of the shares will now be boiled. The legal provision of the shares now will now be the responsibility of the company that is managing the investments for the company. So who are those people that we call the clients of fund manager? The fund manager can be financial institutions, it can be insurance company, it can be a mortgage firm, it can be a microfinance institutions and many more, depending on the nature of the transactions. So most countries in the whole world, they have a stewardship code with some principles. So a client or fund manager include pension fund. You can see, I don't mention that. We have pension fund. They act as a investment client to manage investment assets and shares. So client fund manager include pension fund and insurance company. And they are also encouraged by Financial Reporting Council to apply the stewardship code on the basis as asset manager. So what are the stewardship code and principles? The stewardship code consists of 7 principles, each with supporting guidance. The first principle of stewardship code is disclosure of policy on stewardship. So both parties, the institutional investors and the agent, must disclose all necessary information and the terms and conditions of engagement to avoid any form of litigation. Two, another principle of stewardship code is that conflict management. So areas of clash of interest should be resolved, and all these things have to be documented because investment comes with a lot of crisis. So all these areas of divergent crisis should be resolved on the round table. So it has to be resolved amicably, and if the matter degenerates beyond that, then they can bring litigation in court. So monitoring complaints too is part of the principle they give you under stewardship code, that we have to ensure that institutional investors should monitor the companies in which they invest to decide when it may be appropriate to initiate dialogue with the board of directors. So we have to ensure that you monitor the activities of the company, how the resources of the company is being used, the investments of the company, the financial statement, the performance of the company should be used. And again, another principles under the stewardship code is that we are required to exercise what we call shareholders activism. Any time we discover that the company is not being run in the right way. So again, other principle, we have to work along, align with other shareholders. So we must collaborate with them to ensure that the achievement of the company goals materialize. At any time, the shareholders have to come together as a group to exercise their shareholders' activism, displeasure or discomfort. So we are expected to join them to exercise these rights. So the policy on the voting and disclosure of voting, the policy on voting and disclosure. So all the directors, we have to make it as it is mandatory that they exercise transparency and disclosure, and all the shareholders, they are entitled to their voting rights. They must not deprive them of their voting rights in resolving all major issues. So lastly, we have periodic reporting of the activities of the company based on the stewardship code. So they have to ensure that the activities of the company, both financial and non-financial, must be duly reported. So with this now, they can be able to run the company seamlessly and achieve their results. So abiding with this principle too will bring about good corporate oversight, and you can't see any declining performance. So the stewardship code too is one of the code under corporate governance that give us the guidelines through which the board of directors, the shareholders, and institutional investors can work together to ensure that the company achieve its predetermined goals and objectives, both in the short, medium, and long time. So that's where we are going to end our lectures today. By special grace of God, we meet tomorrow by 1 o'clock. Today, I noticed that our class is a little bit reduced. I don't see Mrs. Alexander and some other names that I don't know offhand. So thanks so much. We meet tomorrow by 1 o'clock.